Hello there. The European Union is showing us its true colours again. Oh, and there's more news on UK excess deaths. This should act as a warning to Ukraine about joining the European Union. It transpires that the EU is set to import a record amount of liquefied natural gas, or LNG, this year from, that's right, Russia. According to Global Witness, an eco-campaigning non-governmental organisation, EU countries are estimated to have spent nearly €5.3 billion buying over half of all Russia's LNG during the first 7 months of 2023, with Spain and Belgium the second and third largest buyers worldwide, with China being the main customer, of course. In fact, according to Global Witness analysis of commodity data from Kepler.com, the EU is buying significantly more LNG now than it did prior to the Russian invasion of Ukraine. And that, of course, is because they used to buy in gas direct from Russia via pipeline, so had less need for LNG. But despite the EU saying it will wean itself off of Russian gas by 2027, imports of Russian LNG into the EU increased by 40% in the first 7 months of this year compared to the first 7 months of 2021. Now, according to the EU, between January and September 2022, Russia accounted for 17% of EU LNG imports, the second largest behind the USA. So I assume that 17% figure will increase for this year. But the EU also says, following the Russian invasion of Ukraine in February 2022 and its weaponization of energy supply, the Russian share of pipeline imports has fallen dramatically, with Norway being currently the most important source of pipeline gas imports into the EU. But then the EU increases its imports of Russian LNG. So are they saying that Russian pipeline gas is weaponized, but not its LNG? And those EU countries that buy the stuff are funding Putin's armed forces. What will the average Ukrainian think on reading this? Here's some more news from Global Witness. Spain is now the second largest buyer of Russian LNG worldwide, with Belgium close behind. During the first 7 months of 2023, Spain took 18% of Russia's total sales, while Belgium took 17%. China bought 20%. During the same period in 2021, Spain ranked 5th and Belgium 7th. This is despite the EU Energy Commissioner, Kadri Simpson, urging member states to cease purchasing Putin's LNG, and Spain's own Ecological Transition Minister, Teresa Ribera, asking LNG buyers in Spain not to sign new contracts with Russia. Well, no one seems to be paying any heed to the politicians, do they? And it seems they have no legal way to block it either. So Russia sells the EU gas so Putin can fund his war on Ukraine, while the EU buys gas to help make weapons to give to Ukraine to fight off the Russians. Now, I had a quick look to see if the UK has clean hands here where Russian coal, oil and gas are concerned. And according to the House of Commons Library, in 2021, imports from Russia made up 4% of gas use in the UK. 9% of oil and 27% of coal. In 2021, imports of gas, oil and coal from Russia to the UK were worth a combined £4.5 billion. This fell to £2.2 billion in 2022 and £1.3 billion in the year to January 2023. And it goes on to say that the UK has now banned all imports of Russian coal, gas and oil. But it also says the EU has not agreed a ban on Russian gas, but has introduced policies aimed at moving away from dependence on it. Not going too well, is it? But it's all okay, as we are all still buying the stuff from other unpleasant regimes across the world and funding the oppression of their people. If only the UK had its own coal, oil and gas that it could use to bridge the gap between now and a realistic date when nuclear power can take the load together with renewables if we need them. Oh, yes. Actually, we could probably do that by 2050 with a whole series of small modular reactors. But we would need the ability to generate about 4 times as much electricity as we do today in order to live life the same as we do today. If we don't generate that amount, a lot of people will be missing out on things like electric car ownership, etc. But I'm not sure about battery-driven aeroplanes. How about you? Or will we still be burning some sort of fuel in them? And in performance vehicles like jet fighters, missiles, tanks and the like. Anyway, good to see the EU is still waving the flag for Ukraine, isn't it? So excess deaths are still with us. In the week ending the 18th of August, that's week 33 of the year, there was an excess over and above the 5-year average of 451 deaths in the UK. That is 4.4% of all the 11,460 deaths. Further, in Wales there was an excess of 11.4%, and in England it was 3.9%. And as you can see from this updated graph, this has been persistent over many months, and all I'm showing you here is from the beginning of this year. Now, as you can also see from the graph, the average over the year to date has been 6.8% excess deaths. Now, some people might not think that 400 or so a week out of a population of 67 million is particularly noteworthy. Well, it is to the family and friends, and I looked at the figures and added some of them up, and it amounts to nearly 25,000 people, real people, in England and Wales alone so far this year, passing away above the 5-year average rate. And it's not all down to the health emergency lurgy either. And still nothing from the establishment blob. Nothing. And nothing from the opposition or from the press. Just an eerie silence. You get the impression they either can't be bothered with an excess of hundreds and in some cases thousands of people passing away every month, or they know the real reason and want it kept out of the limelight. Whichever of those it is not acceptable. And this acceptable situation is proving to be very persistent. And the only politicians that ask questions in the House about this are basically shouted down or shunned. And the main questioner, Reclaim MP Andrew Bridgen, was told by, at the time, fellow Tory MPs to keep his mouth shut and take the easy, head below the parapet approach. Makes you wonder what type of people we've elected into that august chamber, doesn't it?